What's up, guys? We're going to continue our work here on Chapter 7 with Section 2. We'll be talking about angles and parallel lines. So what you're going to be learning today is to identify parallel lines and the angles formed by parallel lines and something that's called a transversal. And we'll be talking about these things in just a minute. So first, here's some vocabulary. Pause and write all this out. A line that intersects two other lines at different points is a transversal. In the diagrams below, line T is a transversal. So here is line T. It's this line. Notice it crosses both this and this line at two different points. Line T on this one is a transversal. It crosses here and here on these two different lines. And then you need to make sure you copy all of this down as well as the pictures with the numbers in those particular angles. So it says, corresponding angles lie on the same side of the transversal and in corresponding positions. In other words, if I were to cut this shape out or this kind of picture right here and pick it up and place it right on top of that, how would they match up? So if I cut this out and pasted it right on top of this, how are they going to match up? Well, the 5 and the 1 match, the 7 and the 3 match, the 8 and the 4, and the 6 and the 2. And that's what you're looking at. That's what all this says down here. That's what you're looking at for these corresponding angles. For alternate interior angles, it's the angles that are opposite of one another. So alternate interior angles lie within a pair of lines and on opposite sides of the transversal. So 3 is right here. If I go to the opposite side and look at the opposite side of that, so it's like over here and then the opposite. So what is on the other side of that? It's going to be the 2 and the 3. On this side, it's the 1 and the 4. So that's what alternate interior angles are. You want to make sure you have this copied down well in your notes so that you could refer back to it so that you remember what it is. Here's our daily funny. Oh man, it's 3 in the morning. I should really get off the computer and go to bed. This is what all of you people do. An hour later, yeah, you know that's you. All right, so identifying angles, identify a pair of corresponding angles and a pair of alternate interior angles. For corresponding angles, there's a few different ones that we could look at. Let's just look at angle 1 here. So a corresponding angle to angle 1, I'll say angle 1. And then the one that's going to be corresponding is if I were to cut this and place it on top of that, this angle 3 is the one that lines up with that. So angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding. There's others on here as well. It just says to identify a pair. And then it asks me to do alternate interior. So if I'm looking at, let's look at angle 2 on this one. So if I have angle 2, it's an interior angle. I want the one that's opposite of it that's also on the interior. So angle 2, that's opposite, so I have to cross this line over here. It's the one that's kind of diagonal to it. You can think of it that way. Angle 2 and then angle 7. Angle 7 is the one that is an alternate interior angle to that. So this is really straightforward. It's just being able to identify these things. Here's one for you to try. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, so here's what I got. So double check against that. See if you have the same. If not, go back and find your mistake. All right, transversals and parallel lines. This says when a transversal intersects two parallel lines, corresponding angles are congruent and alternate interior angles are congruent. So you want to pause and copy all of this down as well as copy down this diagram. This right here means that line L is parallel to line M, meaning they run on next to each other forever and they would never ever intersect. That's what parallel means. These little lines right here tell you what lines are congruent with one another. So this is congruent with this because they're vertical. This is congruent with this because it's corresponding. This is with this because it's corresponding. This and this are congruent because they're alternate interior. That's what all of this is telling you. So there's a lot of things that happen in the pair of parallel lines that is cut by a transversal. So again, make sure you have all of that copied down. So we could use that information to find angle measure. It says a carpenter wants to make a hat rack and needs to find all the angle measurements. He knows that line R, this one, is parallel to line S, which is this one. Now, an easy way to help you remember that is to draw these little triangles on here. And what those triangles tell you is when you look at it, hey, these two lines go in the same direction forever. They're never going to cross. All right, he knows that line R is parallel. He knows that angle 4 here is 63 degrees. I'm just going to write that in here. All right, so angle 4 is 63 degrees. What is angle 5? Well, here are my two lines. Angle 4 is 63 degrees. Is angle 5 related to angle 4? Well, yes, those two lines are alternate interior angles. And based on that definition from the slide before, alternate interior angles are congruent to one another. So if angle 4 is 63 degrees, then that must mean that the measure of angle 5 is also 63 degrees because they are alternate interior angles. So here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause and give it a go. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's what I got. If angle 3 is 117 degrees, then angle 6 is alternate interior to that, so it's the same. If angle 3 is 117 degrees, then angle 7 is corresponding, which means it is also congruent. So both of those angles are 117 degrees. Hopefully you found that. All right, so identifying parallel lines. It says in the diagram, the measure of angle 1 is 60 degrees, and angle 3 is 60 degrees. Explain how you know that LP and PN are parallel to one another. Hold on, I might have wrote that out wrong. Let me check something here. All right, I apologize about that. I had a little typo. So it says, explain how you know that LP is parallel, that's what the sign means, to MN, and how LM is parallel to PN. All right, so let's take a look at this first one, LP and MN. I'm going to go ahead and just write in these angle measures. So angle 1 is 60 degrees. Angle 3 is 60 degrees. All right, so, whoops, that's a 30. So how do I know that these two things, first of all, let's look at LP is parallel to MN. So I'm looking at this and this. Well, how can I know that? Well, angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent. I forgot to write this in. This is 60 degrees. So if angle 1 and angle 2 are congruent, then this line and this line are cut by this transversal. That makes angle 1 and angle 2 corresponding. So you would say angle 1 and angle 2 are corresponding angles. And that makes those parallel. To figure out angle or line LM and PN, all right, so I'm looking at LM and PN. I would say angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent, and they're also alternate interior. So I'd say angle 1 and angle 3 are alternate interior angles. And that's how I know that they are parallel to one another, because these are congruent and they are corresponding angles. All right, so I should probably say that they are congruent. And that's that. So here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, here's how you know that those are parallel, because this angle is right angle and this angle is a right angle. Those two angles are congruent. They are also corresponding to one another. So if those corresponding angles are congruent, then that must mean that line L and line M are parallel. So this is my explanation right here. That's it for today. So hopefully you took good notes. I'll see you in class.